Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. This one is player rankings for Game Week 22, where myself and George from Ingenuity Fantasy make top 10 lists for 6 different categories. Those categories being budget defenders, budget mids, premium mids, budget forwards, premium forwards. We discuss our lists, so let's get straight into it. Okay, hello and welcome back to player rankings. It has been a while. I think Game Week 16 was the last one we did, but we're now back. We're going to be back each game week. So, yeah, to get straight into it. Keane Lewis Potter is
Yep.
second in your list.
Yeah.
Now, he's not in my list at all. He
Mhm.
has been brilliant. I will say that. But I'm
Yeah.
just not convinced on his minutes now
Yeah.
that Ango Utara is going to be back from the African Cup of Nations.
Yeah. And to be honest, it's a perfectly valid concern. His minutes are a risk. I think the reason he finds himself as high as he does is, even though he is risky, the upside is just unbelievable,
Mm.
especially at his price. He's a right winger listed as a defender playing for one of the best attacks in the league certainly at the moment. So when you combine all and the fact he's 4.9 million, you combine all of those factors into one, and it just makes his ceiling. He's got the highest ceiling of any player on this list,
Yeah,
and it's not close.
yeah.
So that's why he finds us up. But then, as you say, we will need to see how the minutes shake out with Dango returning. I just think at the moment, if you're Brentford, you probably don't want to change too much
Yeah.
given how well they're
Mhm,
playing. So I don't know. It's
mhm.
definitely one to keep an eye on, but the upside is there.
Yeah, I mean, if you could tell me that over the next 5 weeks he's going to get between 60 and 70 minutes every single game,
Mm,
he'd be top of my list.
mm.
I will say that. I'm just, and maybe you're right. Maybe they don't shake things up because it's been going so well. But for me, I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical on minutes. But like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
say, if he does get the minutes, he is absolutely great. The next place to look at is Sunderland defenders. Now,
Mhm.
we've been banging the Mukiele drum, or I have at least anyway, all season, to be
Yeah.
honest. But now that the fixtures are really, really good,
Mhm.
Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete are 2, 3, and 4 in my list. They're 4, 5, 6 in your list. I think
Mhm.
that they represent unbelievable value. Even Ballard at 4.6 million, because of his threat, he represents maybe even the best value out of all of them, even though he's the most expensive.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not much to dislike. Certainly, their next three fixtures in
Mhm.
particular don't really get much better. Crystal Palace, who have at the moment, let's be frank, one of the worst attacks in one of the worst on the worst end of attacks in the league at the moment. And then
Mhm.
going into West Ham, we don't even need to elaborate on that, no offense. And then Burnley. So those three fixtures are absolutely ripe for clean sheets,
Yeah.
and when you combine that with the fact that even though Sunderland they're coming off the back of a pretty bad loss, they still conceded the third least goals in the league, even off
Mhm.
the back of a loss like that. So, throughout the season, we've seen this. Sunderland like to make their games very cagey. They're often low scoring affairs. They set up quite compactly. They do really limit, the sort of football that the other teams can play, and that naturally results in plenty of clean sheets. So what you see from Mukiele, Ballard, and Alderete, they all really hit that DEFCON mark. Mukiele, I think, he's returned DEFCON in three of his last three, I believe, or
Mhm.
potentially even four. So when you combine that DEFCON with that clean sheet potential, and it's a good defense, that's just a recipe for points for all of them.
Yeah. The defense is legit. We know that now. And yeah, the Defcons aren't going anywhere. That's not a fluke. The
Yeah,
Defcons. I do think that they've all got attacking threat as well. I mean,
yeah,
even if Mukiele is playing as a fullback, which he hasn't been recently, but even when he does, he's got great attacking threat. Defcon is a little bit more limited when he's playing there, but the attacking threat is there. All of
yeah,
them are just brilliant, essentially. They're all great.
yeah.
So, yeah. And then moving on to a bit where you've got Richards top and Cash
Yeah.
eighth. I've got Cash top and Richards seventh. So a little bit
Mhm,
of disparity there. Tell me
mhm.
your thinking.
So I think for me, in this occasion, at the moment, I don't really trust either of their defenses massively, but I do like, I think Richards coming back really does help the Palace defense.
Hmm.
I think him coming back really does help to solidify. And I think if you look at Palace's fixtures, they've got Sunderland, which is a good fixture for a defender. Then they've got Chelsea, who are faltering at the moment, but then they have Nottingham Forest, Brighton, Burnley, and then Wolves, which for a defender, you can't really ask for better fixtures. So it's just the fixtures, combined with his DEFCON output, Richards is still ninth in the league for total DEFCONs among defenders, and he's missed 4 games, which would tell you everything you need to know about his DEFCON potential. So again, like the Sunderland defenders, he fits into that, DEFCON plus clean sheet potential over the next 5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, as a player, I've got Richards in my team, and I won't be selling him. Like
Mm.
I do like him as an option. I'm just not sure I trust that Palace defense as much as I
Yeah.
did, and especially, this isn't by any means now, but if Gahey leaves, I think that
Mm.
defense could be in a bit of trouble. But
Yeah.
regardless, I just don't trust it as much. Whereas Cash, I don't think he is as reliant on fixtures either. Like Richards and Palace have so many fixtures coming up, whereas
Mm.
Cash, yes, they still got quite a few fixtures, but they don't rely on good fixtures as much because he can get attacking threat. And I think the Aston Villa defense is just better set up to deal with big fixtures anyway. But either
Yeah.
way, I do still think they're both good options. I think they've just both got limitations to them, I guess.
Yeah. No, agreed.
But that rounds out the budget defenders. If we move on to the premium defenders now, and I think we can both agree that it's Gabriel, Timber, and then a big gap to the rest of these guys. For me, Gabriel and Timber are by far and away the best defenders right now.
Yeah, they're just playing a different game. I mean, you even saw it against Liverpool, Arsenal, especially now Gabriel's back, now Rice is back. They just have that ability to just suffocate other teams, especially in the attacking sense. Granted, attack going forward, they didn't have a huge amount going on, but when you're talking about their defenders, it kind of doesn't matter. And I think Gabriel and Timber separate themselves from not just the rest of the list, but also the rest of the Arsenal defenders, because
Mhm,
Gabriel is that perennial set piece threat, and I think Timber has the highest goal involvements, expected goal involvements per 90 of any defender in the game. So, and Gabriel's a perennial set piece threat. So those two factors alone, just when you're playing for the best defense in the league, just put them a level above. I'm considering tripling up on Arsenal's defense at the
mhm,
moment, to be honest, because no other team is. You can't really trust any other team's defense at the moment. So because of that,
mhm.
the opportunity cost is really there.
Yeah, I'm also considering tripling up. We'll get into the midfielders in a bit, but that's a large reason why. But I'm also considering tripling up. We saw it in the Liverpool game with Timber, even though it wasn't successful a lot of times. He'd
Mhm.
overlap Saka, he'd underlap
Yeah.
Saka. He was always trying to get forward. And you can see
Mhm.
why his XGI numbers are as they are, because these two are just worth the funds that they
Mhm.
are.
Yeah.
So those two are by far and away the best here. Then after Saliba, there's a bit of a kind of it's Nunes, Lacroix, Chalobah, Hall, Gahey, James, all those type of guys are,
Mhm.
to me, all quite similar. I don't
Yeah.
really see much between them all. You've got
Yeah.
Chalobah in fourth. Chelsea's fixtures for the next 6 game weeks, in fact, we look at the next 5 when we're making these lists, but the next
Yeah.
6 game weeks are as good as any other team.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Chelsea's fixtures are, to put it bluntly, a joke. Like they've
Mhm,
got Brentford, which next, which is a tricky game. But then if you're looking at it from a defensive standpoint, they're playing Palace, who at the moment we know their attack is sputtering a bit, and then West Ham, Wolves, Leeds, Burnley. You know,
mhm,
if you are a defender looking at that game, that you are absolutely licking your lips. But also some of these teams are leaky as well. And Chalobah, whether we like it or not, I'm not a big Chelsea fan by any stretch, but that he is a set piece threat, and he is
mhm,
he can get in the box. I think he's got 3 goals already this season and an assist, so he is in and around the right areas, and he has also been hitting his DEFCON thresholds recently.
mhm.
I think he's hit 4 of his last 6 or something along those lines. So, the DEFCONs are back for Chalobah. The fixtures are there. The set piece threat is there. That's even though Chelsea's defense is struggling a bit, I think even a struggling defense would would get some clean sheets into those fixtures.
Yeah, I think he is one of the top scoring defenders, I think, in the whole game. But for me, I think with even before Rafinha coming in, I think there's just a bit of uncertainty around minutes. I mean, Chalobah did seem like the most nailed centre back.
Yeah.
Fofana, who was high up your list
Mm.
in the budget, he, I'd say, is their best centre back that's fit. But we know that he's not going to play twice a week every week.
Yeah.
Chalobah is more likely to, but I still just have that little bit of uncertainty with the new manager coming in. Who knows what he's going to do? So that's why he isn't quite as high for me. But if he was nailed, yeah, he'd be fourth in my list for sure.
Yeah.
But that rounds out the premium defenders, and the defenders will be back for the midfielders. Before we get into the midfielders, I just want to talk about ingenuityfantasy.com, completely free website. Link is in the description. Ingenuityfantasy.com, all sorts of good stuff on there. You've got articles from various different people within the FPL community. You've got stats tables. You've got all sorts of cool things, FPL quizzes, and you've also got the transfer wizard, which is a really cool tool. You basically put in what position you want to buy, you put in how much money you've got to spend, and it will give you a ranked list of players to consider. So make sure you're checking it out. Ingenuityfantasy.com. The link is in the description. Let's get onto the midfielders now. Okay, onto the midfielders, and starting off with the budget mids. And Harry Wilson is at the top of your list. I completely get why he's at the top of your list. For me, he doesn't quite make it to the top. He's in my list at fifth, but yeah, talk to me about Wilson.
Well, I mean, anyone who's owned Wilson knows how much of a pleasure it's been. I think it's 10 goals in his last 9 games, which is, 10 returns even in his last 9 games, which is just unbelievable output for a 5.8 million midfielder. But I think quite a few people were worried they missed the boat because a lot of people got Wilson in for that 3 game stretch. But their fixtures coming up are Leeds, Brighton, Man United, and Everton. If you're an attacker, you are not scared by those fixtures at all. So don't be worried about if you've missed the boat for Wilson. You can hop on it right now and walk into some great fixtures. But more importantly, these aren't fluky goals he's scoring. He could have even had another one against Chelsea. His underlying expected goal involvements over that 9 game stretch have been 0.67 per 90, which for at this value is absolutely fantastic. So it's not like these are flash in the pan goals, or he's massively exceeding his xG. He is exceeding his xG, but it's not crazy, the difference. So I think what you can take away from this is that the underlying numbers suggest this is sustainable. The fixtures are good enough that I can't see a reason why that would scare you. And at 5.8 million, you're not risking much, so why not?
Yeah, if this was based on value, he'd be higher up my list for sure at 5.8 million. For me, I think I really like him, to be fair. That's why he's fifth in my list, fifth out of all budget midfielders. For me, the situation with the players above him is that there's either players that play for better teams, like Enzo Fernandez or Shirky, or Szoboszlai, for example, is on penalties. Like Tavernier is potentially on penalties as well, and probably plays for a better attack than Fulham. That's the only reason they're ahead. But if you've got him, yeah, you're feeling great. And yeah, I also don't think it's too late to buy him at 5.8 million right now.
Yeah.
The next player we want to talk about there is Tavernier, because he's at 3 in both of our lists at 5.5 million, with Semenyo gone, with Cliver out for a while. He's had surgery, I believe. There's a chance that Tavernier could be on penalties. It may be Evan Nilsson, of course, but has Tavernier taken the most recent one? And I think Evan Nilsson was on the pitch as well.
Yes, yeah, he did.
Yeah, so it's most likely Tavernier at 5.5 million. He's ridiculous value.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Semenyo going, you're not just talking about Tavernier taking over set piece duties and stuff like penalties. You're talking about him taking over the focal point role of the Bournemouth attack, because Evan Nilsson, I've said about it. We mentioned Evan Nilsson earlier in the season. Evan Nilsson's spot is at risk. To be honest, I think Krupi's better than Evan Nilsson, and I think yes, they're going to try and make both of them work now. Now Semenyo's gone, but I think over time you'll see Krupi eventually start to sort of lock down that role as his own, and Bournemouth may even sign someone else to replace Evan Nilsson, because Krupi is the future. And then, so where that leaves Tavernier is sort of the consistent focal point of, as we mentioned, of that attack. And he's shown before he can come up with really important goals. He's a great player. If you actually watch him, he's got it all. So yeah, I just think in terms of, we spoke about the pie analogy before. I think there's a huge amount of pie being left by Semenyo, and I can't see why Tavernier doesn't occupy the large section of that.
Yeah, agreed. And and again, we've mentioned how many routes to points these players have before, and for me, he's got a load of routes to points, and that is also why Szoboszlai is high on my list. Now, Szoboszlai is in second in mine; he's not in yours. Reinders is in fourth in yours and not in mine, and I think they're very opposite options in that Szoboszlai is absolutely nailed for minutes.
Yeah,
he is on free kicks. He is on penalties with Isak and Salah out at the moment.
Yeah.
Reinders is the complete opposite, where his minutes are not guaranteed. Granted, he's playing well right now, and he's scored 3 goals in his last 4 games or something.
Mhm.
But his minutes are definitely not nailed. He's not on any set pieces or anything like that. Not that that makes one better than the other, because Reinders is obviously playing in a much better attack as well.
Mm.
But for me, they're very, very different players, and I guess that shows the way that we both look at it. In that Szoboszlai is more nailed on to get something, whereas Reinders has the higher ceiling, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's that sort of contrast between one person whose minutes are safe, and they have all those reliable fundamentals. He's on penalties, safe minutes, and stuff like that. But then the flip side of the coin is Reinders a little more risky for minutes. But Man City's attack at the moment is just absolutely purring. And when you compare the fixtures as well, not that Liverpool have bad fixtures, but Man City's next out of their next 5 fixtures, they've got Man United, who this is the best time to play Man United, to
Mhm,
be honest. Then they've got Wolves at home. Then they've got
mhm,
Spurs, who can't defend to save their life. And then they've got that Liverpool fixture, which will be really key between the battle between these two. And then they've got Fulham at home. So if you look at those just fixtures alone, I can see so many goals on the Man City side.
mhm.
Whereas, if I'm looking at Liverpool playing, Newcastle in game week 24 and then Man City in game week 25, I just don't see nearly as many goals. So I just think even though Szoboszlai's minutes are safe, I don't trust Liverpool's attack nearly as much as I do City's, especially over the next 5.
Yeah, that's fair. For me, it's more minutes in that Doku's back now
Mm,
and Semenyo's arrived. That means that Foden and Shirky may have to play more central than they have
mm,
been, which puts Ryan the spot at risk. I don't know. There's a lot of different ifs and buts here, but ultimately they're both pretty good options if you believe that Ryan's minutes are good.
yeah,
So that rounds out budget midfielders. Onto the premiums now, and we'll start with the Arsenal guys, because you've got Rice above Saka here, and I've got
yeah.
Saka above Rice. I I think value does come into this, in that if we're talking value, like I would be going nowhere near Saka right now. I wouldn't even consider bringing Saka into my team, but I would consider bringing Rice into my team.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly, they both have 4 goals and 7 assists this season. So as far as attacking returns go, they're sitting pretty much level. You would probably expect Saka to, exceed Rice's attacking returns, through to the end of the season. But one thing that Rice will always have in his locker is the fact that he's on set pieces,
Yeah.
which when you are when you play, when you're the set piece taker for a team like Arsenal, that is almost the same value as being a penalty taker, because
Hmm.
in terms of the frequency of returns, if potentially even better. So
Hmm.
I think, especially if Arsenal, keep playing this more defensive brand of football in these much cagier games, where often it's just a set piece that separates it or is the difference. If Arsenal are playing expansive football and smacking teams 4-0 and 5-0 every week, then Saka would naturally be nudging ahead of Rice. But I think, while they're playing defensive football, I think you probably lean more towards Rice, especially given the fact that he can tack on, the defensive contributions as well.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it, yeah, sorry, I was going to say, and it's for that reason as well that the 3 highest bonus points in the game are these players that do the DEFCON stuff
Hmm.
and the goals and assists. So that at the minute this season, you can probably guess the top 3. It's Bruno Fernandes, Declan Rice, and Bruno Guimaraes. And what they all have in common is that they get returns on the attacking end, and they combine it with the defensive contribution stuff. So when you combine those two, you get those extra bonus points on top. And for me, that just puts Rice over the hill in terms of Saka.
Yeah, that's right. I think if funds weren't a thing, I think it's pretty close. But if you're
Mm.
talking value, then Rice is the one you go for sure
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, yeah.
The other players to talk about here are Palmer and Fernandez, because actually for me, similar to Gabriel and Timber, Fernandez and Palmer are there's probably a bit of a gap between them and third place here, I'd say. I think they are the two best. I think that Fernandez doesn't have the best fixtures in the next two, although I don't
Mm,
hate the City game up next, because City defensively are a bit of a mess, especially
mm,
with Diaz and Guardiola out. After that, the fixtures are great, and Bruno's just Bruno.
yeah.
Palmer does have the fixtures, he just doesn't actually have the form right now, but fixtures, great form. So for me, they're the
Mm.
two best.
Yeah, but as you can see from my list, I'm in complete agreement. I think Palmer would definitely find himself at 1 if he was in slightly better form, coming
Hmm.
into those fixtures. But, I'm seeing, I put Palmer in my wildcard team and I was getting a bit of stick for it. And I was like, I think people seem to have forgotten that This man had 25 goal contributions last season, 35 the season before that. He's still Cole Palmer, and as you say, fixtures create that form. So, I'll be shocked if Palmer doesn't haul during that time period. And yeah, exactly what you're getting from Fernandez.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
And I think it's a little bit of a tangent, I guess, but I think that Rosenior will know that he needs to get the best out of Palmer. That is his
Yeah,
like number one job right now, is get the
yeah,
best out of Palmer, and that will win you football games. So you'd think
yeah,
he'd do that. But
100%.
the last thing we're going to look at here briefly is Bruno Guimaraes versus Anthony Gordon. And
Yeah,
this for me is again how I look at things, which is why for me, Rice is lower on my list, which is why for me, players, certain other players are lower. That centre midfielder role, even though it's like a box crashing number 8 role,
mm,
that will still always be lower in my mind than an attacking winger. So
yeah,
that's the reason I've got Saka over Rice slightly. That's the reason I've got Gordon and not Bruno Guimaraes. And Gordon is on penalties when he's on the pitch. But
yeah.
the minutes favour Bruno G. I think that Gordon, when he's on the pitch, is a much better option, though.
Yeah, it's tricky because I completely get the profiles argument, and traditionally the way you play FPL, you wouldn't ever look at eights. But the fact that we both have Rice as high as we do should indicate the sort of evolution that is undergoing FPL. And to say that Bruno's not just limited to crashing the box either. He scored 8 goals and 5 assists this season, and with normal players like Trippier not being on the pitch, Hall missing a bit of time, Shaw not starting. Bruno's also found himself on set pieces a lot.
Mm.
And for a team as large and physical as Newcastle, with aerial threats like Tiao and Byrne and Joe Linton and stuff like this, what you're finding is, we're putting so many balls into the box, of which Bruno is a big part of, especially from those set pieces, and people are getting on the end of them. And that's where a large amount of Bruno's assists are coming from. I think it's an absolute disgrace that you've got Wirtz on your list and not Bruno. That is but yeah, I do get the profiles argument. I completely do, but I just think Bruno's involved way more in an attacking capacity than I think people give him credit for, or
Mm.
than Newcastle fans can see. He's part of all of the link-up play. He tries balls over the top. He tries long shots. The edge of the area and crashing the box is his sort of zone.
And I think that it actually might be even potentially me being slow or more patient to react to things. Like that is
Mm,
typically how I view FPL. I am way
mm,
more patient than the average person. So the whole profile of the number 8s being great, like Rice, Bruno Guimaraes, Bruno Fernandes, Enzo Fernandez, I'm still not quite there yet. But
mm,
I do think that it is worth considering for sure. But anyway,
mm.
that rounds out the premium midfielders and the midfielders. We will be back with the forwards. Okay, and on to the forwards, starting with budget forwards and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He needs to be on the plane in the summer, right?
Honestly, I don't think there's one football player that pisses me off more from an FPL standpoint than this man. Honestly, not least considering he gave us a lot of trouble. But I mentioned it when he just scored 6 goals in 5 games, and he had really bad fixtures, and I was like, thank God DCL has bad fixtures, otherwise we would have to talk about him. But now those fixtures have cleared up, and he's still fucking scoring goals. So like I I see people bringing him in their team. I can't even be annoyed at you anymore. He scored like 9 goals in 8 games or 8 starts, some nonsense like that. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk
This,
about it. I've been
honestly,
scarred by him so many times. I know, because I know if I bring him in, he will stop. I know that will happen the second I bring him in. So I'm not doing it. I'm not talking about him.
the stick that I got for suggesting Dominic Calvert-Lewin on X about
Right.
2 months ago was outrageous.
Are you having your
Outrageous.
moment? Let them know. Let them know. Have
May
your
your
moment.
apology be as loud. He is actually brilliant though. Like even watching him,
Yeah.
he's just actually great. Like
Yeah. I
Leeds
hate it.
clearly are the whole idea of Leeds attack is to feed Calvert-Lewin,
Mm.
and it works. So
Yeah.
yeah, DCL is just going to be in the squad in the summer. Anyway, Brobby is a player that he's low down my list. He's not on your list.
Mm.
He seems to be starting for Sunderland now. Don't get me wrong, I don't think he's like an unbelievable pick, but we talked about how good Sunderland's fixtures are earlier. He is a proper number 9. He is a handful. I've watched him a few times, and he is a joke. Like if you wanted a proper differential, like Sunderland attack is nothing special, let's be honest, but
Yeah.
none of these guys are. If you wanted a real differential for like 3 weeks, I think Robbie is genuinely a good option because their fixtures are incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you can't argue with Palace, West Ham, and Burnley. There's definitely goals there. My only problem, yeah, as you say, my only problem is Sunderland just don't play an attacking enough brand
Yeah.
of football for me to venture to him. If I was going to go differential from someone here, I'd maybe look more like a Krupi or a Barry even.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, watching him, he is a handful for sure.
Yeah. And speaking of Croupy, he obviously jumps up our list now
Mm,
that I mean Clive out helps as well, but Semenyo's gone. So I mean, who knows how Bournemouth are actually going to set up? They've got Adley as well, who can
mm,
play in these like any of the front positions really. Croupy, as we have kind of mentioned, Croupy is better than Evan Nilsson. It's a time thing that
mm.
Croupy will take over from Evan Nilsson. But even before that, Croupy played in the last game with Evan Nilsson, even with Semenyo. So Croupy
Yeah.
will just get minutes. Who knows where? Who cares where actually?
Yeah.
But he will get minutes.
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume that Krupi is a starter from now until the end of the season. I think, his quality shows that. I think he's level with Lamine Yamal for goals this season for teenagers, which, is the exact tier that Krupi deserves to be in. But I think more importantly, we became experts on Krupi quite recently, actually. And whether he's starting at the 10, whether he's playing up front, he finds himself so far forward every time that he just has a knack and an eye for goal. He doesn't care where he's starting, whether he's starting on the left, whether he's starting at the 10, whether he's starting up front. He just wants to get forward. So I don't think you need to pay too much concern about, he's going to start on the left. It's going to hurt his production. He's going to start at the 10. He just wants to get forward and score. So I think you can feel
Mhm.
fairly confident about him.
Yeah, nowhere hurts his production. I think that's safe to
Yeah.
say. Okay, that is it for budget forwards. On to premium forwards now. And we'll start with Watkins because Watkins comes up our lists. And I mean, just because Aston Villa are just brilliant now. And even when Aston Villa, sorry, started their kind of resurgence almost, it was Rodgers. It wasn't Watkins that was actually
Mm.
getting involved. He now is starting to get a piece of the pie, as we say.
Yeah, I mean, involved is an understatement for Watkins' performance recently. I think he's got 4 goals and like 6 returns in his last 6.
Mhm,
Including 4 goals. So he's absolutely flying. Villa are absolutely flying, and to be honest, their fixtures aren't scary either. They've got Everton, then they've got Newcastle, and then Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton, Leeds, and Wolves. So
mhm.
when you combine the form they're in, the form Watkins is in, the fixtures they have coming up as a long-term option, I absolutely love him.
Yeah, I looked up Villa's fixtures, I think, and like you say, was it Liverpool, Newcastle were the two tough ones in the next
Uh,
couple of weeks, I think,
so yeah, no, they
potentially.
haven't actually. Liverpool, they've got final game of the season, but they've got us, and then the only other red fixture, which shouldn't even be red, is Bournemouth, and they've got
Yeah,
that in
and yeah,
25.
exactly that in itself. And then after that, they don't play a tough game until game weeks 37, 38. So
Yeah, yeah,
they are just a great team to be looking at now and over the next few weeks.
yeah.
After Watkins, I've got Ekatike here. You've got Ekatike 10th. Now, I have got him here because obviously Isak's out. So we
Mm.
know that when Ekatike is fit, he will play up front and he will play all the minutes. The game against Arsenal the other day, they didn't play with a striker. They looked terrible without a
Yeah,
striker going forward. Awful. They needed Ekatike there. And
yeah.
I don't think this injury, whatever this is, this DOMS, I don't get how DOMS keeps a professional athlete from playing, but it must not be DOMS. But I just can't see him not being back for the next game.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. No one really knows what's going on. I think the biggest piece of information we as FPL managers have at the moment is the fact that Liverpool's head of recovery that took Ekatike out of their FPL team, which has prompted loads of people, including myself, to do the same.
Mm,
Um, well, to be fair, I mean I haven't actually taken him out of the team, but I've been benching him and will be for the foreseeable. But I think the problem is no one really knows what's
mm,
happening. But I think what you make a good point against Arsenal, it was made abundantly clear that Liverpool will struggle to score goals if he is not on the pitch. Which, if anything, if they were able to put 2 or 3 past Arsenal, I think they'd be a bit more patient. But I think given how stagnant they looked going forward without him, I think that will just add a sense of urgency to his return.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And the last player that I want to touch on here is Sesko, because Sesko's been in and around my lists for a while. I like him. I think that if he gets minutes, I think he's got what it takes to be a good striker. So I think that now, after scoring a couple goals, we will see Sesko kick on a little bit, especially with Bruno Fernandes back. I think that's key as well.
Yeah, you've almost been trying to will him into scoring goals
Mm.
by keeping him in your
It
list.
worked with DCL.
It did work with DCL. It did work with DCL. And Sesko has finally answered the call. I am a bit, if you're considering, going in some sort of direction for, you know, uh, the sort of differential that Sesko is, I would not touch him for the next 2 weeks,
Mm. Mhm.
or at least move. But after that, the fixtures do open up a bit for Man United. So
Mhm.
they've got Fulham, Spurs, West Ham, Everton, and then Palace. And then around that time, they'll get Mbuemo back, they'll get Ahmad back, and they've got Bruno back now. So maybe their attack keeps rolling, and maybe Sesko becomes the focal point of it. So it's definitely one to wait and see. I think these 2 goals will do a lot for his confidence as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I like him. But anyway, that rounds out premium forwards, that rounds out forwards, that rounds out the video. So that is all. Make sure you check out ingenuityfantasy.com as I mentioned earlier. But that is all from us this week. We will be back for game week 23. Cheers. See you next time.